the most uncomfortable throuple we've ever seen, I would argue, and it is pushing Harry over the edge.
He is like a parasite, always lurking in their shadow. No normal family has a constant third wheel, male or female, leeching onto their every move. Markus is practically glued to them.
There are moments in public life that hit different, so awkward, so revealing that no amount of smooth PR talk can cover them up. And for Prince Harry, one of those moments didn't happen behind closed doors. It played out right in the open in Australia.
It was Princess Diana who once said, there were 3 people in this marriage, so it was a little bit crowded. But how ironic that that famous phrase that she uttered to Martin Bashir is now equally relevant to her own son's failing marriage.
With cameras rolling, crowds locked in, and one unexpected figure stealing the spotlight. Because this isn't just about Meghan Markle anymore. This is about Markus Anderson, the guy who somehow went from longtime friend to always around to what many people are now calling the most uncomfortable presence in Harry's marriage.
But with Prince Harry, he just has to put up with the apparently gay BFF gate-crashing everything. And clearly, there's tension and weirdness.
And once you notice it, you really can't ignore it. From the very start of that Australia trip, something felt off. And not in a small, easy-to-ignore way. This wasn't one of those situations where people are just overthinking or reading too deep into body language. What people saw was clear, repeated, and honestly hard to explain away. Everywhere Meghan showed up, Markus was right there, not hanging back, not fading into the background, but standing close enough to feel like part of the main picture. Walking next to her in public, sitting beside her during key moments, talking with her in a way that looked way more natural than what people were seeing between her and Harry. And then there was Harry, still there, still visible, but somehow looking like he was just circling around a connection that didn't fully include him.
No surprise that Harry is feeling pretty uncomfortable. If you saw the video that she posted on her Instagram, you could see him chewing during that meal. He didn't look great, and it's certainly not something that you would usually expect a loving celebrity wife to post.
Now let's talk about the rugby match, because this is where things stopped being quiet whispers and started turning into real headlines. This wasn't private. This wasn't just a few photos taken out of context. This was live, public footage, clear as day. Meghan and Markus sitting side by side, completely relaxed, fully engaged.
Disastrous bit where he convinced her that this was a good idea. It wasn't. And it shows and I think proves that Meghan Markle is not a draw, which we know her business is failing.
Stepping into a conversation that was already flowing without him. At one point, a moment got people talking almost instantly online.
Did you see the way Meghan looked apologetically at the very handsome man, and Harry looked like he wanted to... As according to Taz said, this was so rude, like Harry tried to belittle him on camera. Jerk.
Harry walked up to another man in what should have been a normal greeting, but the vibe quickly turned awkward. He reached out and touched the man's clothing in a way that viewers later described as unnecessary and a bit uncomfortable. And it lasted just long enough to make people notice. Meghan's reaction was small, but clear. A quick glance toward the man, almost like she was silently saying, "That didn't go how it should have." Meanwhile, Markus stayed calm and unaffected, standing nearby without showing any of the tension that seemed to follow Harry in that moment.
But what is becoming particularly sad to see is that Harry now does feel jealous because of the total lack of attention that he is receiving from his wife.
What really made this stand out wasn't just what happened, it was the contrast. On one side, Meghan and Markus looked completely in sync, moving and interacting with a natural flow that didn't seem forced at all. On the other side, Harry seemed just a step off, like he was trying to find his place in a moment where things weren't lining up for him. There was no shouting, no drama in the obvious way, but it didn't need that. The real tension came from how quietly obvious everything felt. Because whatever that moment was, it didn't come across as confidence.
Brittany, you think there is something very weird and creepy and uncomfortable going on. And we're not even necessarily saying sexually, but just in terms of how this dynamic is really starting to impact the marriage.
It didn't come across as confidence. It looked like insecurity. It didn't feel controlled. And it felt like someone trying and not quite landing it to make their presence known. And that rugby match, that was just the start. Because if anyone thought that strange dynamic would calm down in a more private setting, not even close, the dinner.
It really is quite strange, Dan, because this whole Marcus thing, like, why is he there with them in an intimate dinner, seemingly, when they could be there as a couple? Shouldn't they be there as a couple?
Yeah, that dinner. This wasn't some loud group outing or packed celebrity event. This was supposed to be low-key, personal, the kind of night where a couple reconnects, relaxes, and moves as one unit. Except, that's not what people saw at all. Because once again, Marcus was right there.
At my birthday dinner with all my close friends, got Erin, Mon, Renee, and my good friend Megan over there too.
Not off to the side, not just dropping in for a quick hello, but fully part of the setup. People quickly noticed how everything looked arranged. Meghan in the center, with Harry on one side and Marcus on the other, both angled toward her. It created this visual triangle that was hard to ignore once you spotted it. And the vibe in that restaurant, it only made things feel even more unusual.
You can't help but feel that Harry's probably a little bit uncomfortable and definitely probably a little bit emasculated as well, because he has his wife who would prefer to talk to her gay best friend rather than him.
The place didn't even look busy, which gave the whole scene a slightly staged feel, like it was meant to be seen, not just lived in. Clips and photos from that night showed Meghan fully engaged, expressive, and energized, especially when she was interacting with Marcus. Meanwhile, Harry came across way more quiet, almost pulled back, and at times not fully in sync with the conversation happening around him.
At the dinner for her best life, the camera is situated between Marcus and Harry looking at Meghan. They're framing her, basically. The back of their bodies are framing her. And it's like, it's just becoming exceptionally strange, this dynamic.
It wasn't about one single awkward second. It was all the little moments adding up, where people were looking, who was leading the conversation, who seemed fully present, and who didn't. Because in those clips, Meghan looked completely comfortable. Right in her zone, smiling, animated, locked into the moment, especially when she was talking with Marcus. Harry, eating quietly, sitting back, not saying much. At times,
I don't know what's fully behind it, but Marcus has traveled with them quite a bit in situations where it doesn't make sense for him to travel with them. And I can't help but think if he's sort of helping this marriage stay afloat by keeping them on task, making money or whatever, because maybe he makes money. It's very strange. It seems like there's three of them in this relationship.
not even part of the exchange. Once those images started spreading, reactions came fast, and they didn't need long explanations. People picked up on the dynamic almost instantly. The idea that Harry looked like a third wheel didn't come from just one angle or one clip. It came from repeated moments that all seemed to show the same thing. And once that idea got into people's heads, it stuck.
The whole world saw that during a really awful moment when Harry did arrive at the rugby. And as Christine Gilbert pointed out, when Harry got jealous, that one added so inappropriate to be poking and touching this man's clothes. No manners or boundaries.
A mean girl. We know she's an alleged bully. I imagine in high school, she very much fit the mean girl mode. I'm sure maybe Marcus fits that as well. Harry doesn't really fit that in the same way. And so I'm sure they're two peas in a pod, and Harry's on the outside a lot. And so Harry does what he can to sort of try to kind of puff himself up. Meghan does that occasionally, but there's a very weird dynamic going on. And I just don't understand why Marcus doesn't have something else better to do. Does he have?
From that point on, every new appearance started getting viewed through that same lens. But what really made everything stand out even more was how consistent Marcus's presence was. This wasn't a one-time thing. He didn't just show up for a single event and then fade out. He didn't stay within clear boundaries or occasional appearances. He kept showing up again and again across different situations, public outings, casual walks, moments that looked more private than official. Paparazzi footage even showed him walking side by side with Meghan out in the street, keeping that same close distance that people had already noticed before. And at that point, it stopped being about if he was there.
It was actually a true disaster. not just in terms of PR, but in terms of the financials, because Harry and Meghan's team are saying that Her Best Life was meant to fund the entire trip. But the problem is, Brittany, they simply didn't get enough people there.
It became about how often he was there and how central he seemed every single time. That constant repetition, that's what took things from simple curiosity straight into full-on speculation, because one appearance can be brushed off. Two might make people pause for a second. But when the same situation keeps showing up in different places over and over again, people start asking questions. Why is he always there? Why does he seem so involved in moments that usually belong to a couple? And why does Harry, in those same moments, sometimes look less connected than the one person who isn't even supposed to be at the center of it all?
They did not get enough people there. And as a result, Meghan was not committed to it at all. Because, you know, on Friday, the word going around is she spent 2 hours there and then went to the rugby. No. It was actually only half an hour.
Now, here's the thing. There are no clear answers. No official explanation. No direct statement clearing things up. Nothing that fully explains what people think they're seeing. Instead, what people have are visuals, interactions, patterns. And when you line all of that up side by side, it creates a picture that's hard to ignore.
Hear the cheers? There's not many. Not many people see her for what she is, because we know what she is.
With no clear explanation, people naturally start filling in the blanks. And in this case, a lot of those interpretations point in the same direction. That something about this three-person dynamic just feels off balance. And this isn't about one big dramatic moment either. That's what makes it hit even harder. It's about buildup. One moment by itself might seem harmless, easy to dismiss. But stack them together, the rugby match, the dinner, the street appearances, and suddenly it starts to form a clear pattern. Each moment adds another layer, another piece of the same story. And the key here?
When you can't fill your seats, so you bring in the men to help. Because this is Brittany, this is the picture you're referring to. You see there, Harry, Marcus. That is the most cheap looking stage.
This isn't just random guessing. It's based on repeated visual cues that people keep noticing, replaying, and breaking down again and again.
Brittany, then we actually got to see Harry. And again, to me, he looked like he couldn't have got out of there quick enough.
For Harry, that puts him in a tough spot, no question. Being in the public eye already means people are always watching, but situations like this turn that attention all the way up. Every look, every move, every interaction gets picked apart and added to a bigger narrative that's forming in real time. And when that narrative starts suggesting that you're not fully at the center of your own relationship, that's not just awkward, that sticks. It follows you from one appearance to the next. As the Australia trip kept going, that feeling didn't fade away either. If anything, it got stronger. Each new sighting seemed to reinforce the same pattern. Marcus still there. Meghan still closely connected with him. And Harry still appearing slightly on the outside of that dynamic. Not completely removed, but not fully in sync either. It wasn't loud, it wasn't obvious in a dramatic way, but it was consistent. And that consistency, that's what turns small moments into a full story in the public eye. Because once people start seeing a pattern, they don't just forget it, they start expecting it. And that's where things got even more intense.
If you look closely, you'll notice each table only has place settings for half of the table. And they did that to make the room look fuller.
Because it wasn't just about Markus Anderson showing up anymore. It was about how naturally he seemed to fit into spaces where, traditionally, you wouldn't expect him to be.
And I actually used AI to analyze all of the various shots of the room. And according to AI, it looked like there were approximately 50 paid women sitting at the tables.
By the time the trip moved past those first big moments, people weren't just noticing him. They were actively looking for him. Every new clip, every new photo, every single sighting came with the same question running in the background. Is Marcus there too? And more often than not.
Now we learn several of the guests said that their tickets had been freebies, with one saying she had been gifted 2 passes by a neighbor who worked at the hotel.
And one of the biggest talking points didn't even come from some planned event. It came from something way more revealing. Paparazzi footage. No red carpet, no speech, no official moment. Just Meghan walking down the street like a normal day. And still, Markus was right there. Not a few steps behind. Not keeping space. Right next to her, shoulder to shoulder, fully locked in, moving like this was completely natural. Like this level of closeness wasn't even something to question. And maybe for them, it is normal. But from the outside looking in, especially after everything people had already seen, it didn't feel normal at all. Because here's where it starts to shift. When a friend shows up once, people call it support. When it happens twice, maybe it's just timing. But when it keeps happening and across different places, different situations, different levels of privacy, it starts to feel like something more. It stops looking occasional and starts looking constant. And that difference, it changes everything. Now it's no longer just a couple with a friend nearby. It starts to feel like that friend is part of the core dynamic, almost impossible to separate from those moments, whether public or private. And that's exactly where people started getting uncomfortable. Because if you go back and really watch those clips, the rugby match, the dinner, the street walk.
Now we see why Prince Harry looked irritated at the retreat. It was empty. This looks like barely 100 women.
There's something deeper than just standing close together. It's how they move. Meghan and Markus don't just stand side by side, they move in sync, reacting at the same time, picking up on the same things, flowing through conversations in a way that looks quick, natural, and completely effortless. That kind of rhythm doesn't just happen randomly. It usually comes from years of being on the same wavelength. And on its own, there's nothing strange about that at all. But when you put that next to Harry's reactions, that's when the contrast hits hard. Because he's not moving in that same rhythm. He's not matching that flow. At times, he seems to step into it late, or break it without meaning to, or miss it completely. And that's where things start to feel noticeable.
Just a little bit of the tenor of what went on inside. It was basically people just saying, Meghan, you're brilliant.
You of your time by the beach with a group of women that have you back. And I want you to have that, have it at home. If you're ever having a bad day, you just need to look at that painting and remember that we see you for who you really are.
There are even moments where Meghan and Markus seem to react to something at the exact same time without even looking at each other, like they already know what the other is thinking. Meanwhile, Harry comes in a second later, almost like he's trying to catch up to something that's already moving. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it keeps happening.
Loving the fact that Markus was behind all of these pathetic stunts.
And that's what makes it stand out. And because when something small repeats again and again, it stops feeling random. It starts looking like a pattern. And once that pattern becomes visible, it's hard to ignore. The internet picked up on it fast. No delay at all. Clips started spreading everywhere. Slowed down, zoomed in, broken apart, piece by piece. People analyzing body language, eye contact, timing, every little detail. It might sound intense, but that's how things work now. This is how narratives are built in real time. And the story that started forming here, it wasn't exactly in Harry's favor. It painted a picture of someone who, in certain key moments, didn't look like the main partner in the scene, but more like someone slightly outside of it.
Glossy video, which is meant to show, oh, these people had a wonderful experience and it was so glamorous and we had oysters. This event is actually the most embarrassing thing to happen to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle since Megxit, because it was a disaster.
That phrase, third wheel, didn't just show up randomly, it stuck. Because for a lot of people watching, it felt like the simplest way to describe what they thought they were seeing. But here's where things get even more complicated. There's no clear explanation for why Markus keeps showing up this consistently. He's not officially part of any royal team. He's not a spokesperson. There's no clearly defined role that explains why he's present at so many major events and private-looking moments. And yet, there he is! Again and again, right in the middle of it all, in positions that feel unusually close. Now, people have tried to make sense of it. Some say maybe he works behind the scenes, helping organize or manage parts of Meghan's public life.
So sweet of Meghan to bring along her longtime bestie, Markus Anderson, to the rugby match as they cringe laughing, ignoring Harry.
Others say he's just a close, trusted friend who happens to be around more than most, But even those explanations don't fully cover what people are seeing, because there's a big difference between being involved and being visibly present in the frame, over and over again, in moments that are clearly being captured and shared. And that's where the mood starts to shift. What started as simple curiosity begins turning into something a bit more uncomfortable. Because for Harry, this isn't just about how things look, it's about where he stands in those moments. Visually, publicly, repeatedly.
Are they a throuple? I don't know, but it's all very strange.
There are times where he doesn't seem like the main connection in the space around him. And that's not an easy image to shake, especially when it keeps showing up across different situations. Having a close friend in your life, that's normal. But having that same person constantly positioned right next to your partner, especially when your own presence feels less grounded, that's where people start raising questions. And there's also an emotional side to this that people can't ignore. And even without anyone saying a word, people pick up on energy. They notice small things, quick expressions, slight pauses, moments of hesitation. And in some of these clips, Harry shows brief flashes that people interpret as discomfort, or distraction, or just not being fully at ease. Now, whether that interpretation is completely accurate or not, that almost doesn't matter. Because perception is what shapes the story. And right now, the story being built isn't exactly positive. It points to imbalance, it hints at distance. It suggests that something about this three-person dynamic just doesn't sit right.
It marks the end of a whirlwind tour, 4 days and just 2 cities. The main event here at the Intercontinental in Coogee Beach for a women's wellness retreat. But Meghan was only here for around half an hour.
Even if nobody involved has openly said anything. And then there's Meghan in all of this, because her presence adds another layer entirely. She doesn't look unsure, she doesn't look uncomfortable. If anything, she seems confident, calm, and completely in control of the moment. Her interactions with Markus? Smooth, natural, consistent. There's no visible pulling back, no adjusting, no sign that she's trying to change how things might come across. And that consistency, that sends a message on its own. Because in highly public situations, most people are very aware of how they're being seen. They adjust, they reposition, they try to avoid moments that could be misunderstood. But here, that doesn't seem to be happening. The dynamic stays the same. Whether it's a big public event, a quiet dinner, or just a simple walk outside. And that lack of change, it makes everything feel more intentional. Not staged, but natural to them. And that's what really gets people thinking. Because if this is how things naturally are...
And by the way, she made no news. She didn't want to give anything to these women. It was actually all just about getting in and getting out as quickly as possible.
Then it leads to one big question that people can't stop asking. Where does that leave Harry in all of this? Because the more these moments pile up, the harder it gets to say Harry is clearly at the center of everything. Instead, what people keep seeing is someone moving around a connection that already feels established, not fully leading it, not fully sharing it evenly. Now, that doesn't automatically mean there's something deeper going on behind the scenes. But visually, publicly, repeatedly, it creates an impression that's really hard to ignore. And once an impression like that forms, it doesn't just disappear, it grows, it spreads, it evolves into something bigger than the original moments. By the time the Australia trip started wrapping up, the whole focus had completely shifted. What was supposed to be about events, appearances, and public messaging turned into something else entirely. All eyes were now on this unusual three-person dynamic. Markus wasn't just a background figure anymore. He became one of the main talking points. And Harry's role in all of it, that became one of the most discussed parts of the entire trip. It's not that people were handed clear answers, it's that they were given just enough moments to start building their own. And when those moments got lined up next to each other, they created a picture that didn't feel easy to explain away anymore. It didn't look like coincidence. It didn't feel like simple timing. It started to feel layered, like something more was going on, even if nobody could fully define it. Because when a dynamic looks this consistent, this visible, this uneven, people don't just scroll past it. They keep watching, and they keep asking the same question again and again. Why does it feel like there are 3 people in something that's supposed to be just 2?
The fact that she could not even pull out a small portion of the Intercontinental Ballroom at Coogee Beach tells you this is a woman whose entire brand is toxic.
And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more intense, another moment added even more attention. By the time headlines started shifting toward the Her Best Life event, the situation was already under pressure. But what happened there? It pushed the story even further in a completely different direction. This event was meant to be polished, high-end, carefully put together to show influence, status, and strong demand. A controlled environment and a perfect image. But what came out of that venue told a very different story. And once again, Markus was there. Reports and clips from inside the event started raising eyebrows almost immediately. The room didn't look full. Tables that were expected to be packed appeared only partially filled. Some people even pointed out that seating might have been spaced out to make the crowd look bigger than it actually was. And the attendance numbers? They didn't seem to match the hype at all. Different estimates started circulating, but several accounts suggested turnout was much lower than expected, especially considering the high ticket prices that had been talked about before the event. And that's not a small detail. That directly affects how people see influence in a real-world setting, because it's one thing to have attention online. It's another thing entirely to fill a room in real life. And when those two don't match up, people notice fast. And once they notice, they start connecting it back to everything else they've already been watching. But what really stood out wasn't just the size of the crowd, it was how short Meghan's appearance actually was. Instead of holding the event down with a strong, lasting presence, reports say she was only there for a brief moment, around half an hour. And then she left. And not alone. She left with Harry and Markus. No big announcement, no standout moment, no extended interaction that would match the level of hype the event had built up.
So he's out of there fast because you know what's going through his mind as he's watching his wife pose with a tiny group of people who have spent a ridiculous amount of money. You know what he's thinking. Oh my God, how did it get to this?
For something that was supposed to be a major highlight, it felt quick, almost rushed. Like the goal wasn't to fully deliver an experience, but just to show up, be seen, and move on. And once attention shifted away from the stage again, that same pattern showed up right on cue. Markus was still there, still part of the environment, still connected to what was happening around Meghan, still moving within the same space as if this was completely routine. At this point, people weren't even surprised anymore. They expected him to be there. And that expectation, that's what made everything feel even more unusual. Because now it didn't look like coincidence at all, it looked consistent. For Prince Harry, things didn't exactly improve in this moment either. The footage from the event and the moments around it showed him moving quickly, almost like he was trying to get through it fast.
There is no way to spin this retreat as anything other than a monumental failure because all of the PR was so disastrous and embarrassing. But I guess you could argue, Brittany, if it was sold out, if the room was full, if the tables were packed and it did pay for the entire trip, then maybe there was an argument that it was worth doing.
At times, he seemed disengaged, like he wasn't fully present in what was happening. Not dramatic, not obvious, but still noticeable. There were no big confrontations, no clear breakdowns. But the same energy was there again, slightly disconnected, slightly out of sync with everything going on around him. And after everything people had already seen throughout the trip, that consistency only made the perception stronger, that something about this whole setup just didn't feel balanced. Because what really makes this story stick isn't one big claim or one wild theory. It's the build-up, the rugby match, the dinner, the street moments, the event itself. Each one adds another layer to the same growing narrative. And with no official explanation, no clarification, no direct response, that leaves space wide open for people to interpret things their own way. And once that starts happening, those interpretations don't stay neutral for long. They turn into the story itself. At the center of everything is one simple but uncomfortable question that keeps coming back with every new clip, every new photo, every new discussion. Why does this dynamic feel so different from what people expect to see? Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, consistent way that makes people stop, look again, and start thinking. Because when something keeps feeling slightly off, even without clear answers, it builds its own narrative over time. And right now, that narrative is louder than ever. So now the question turns to you. If you've been watching all of this unfold, what do you think? Is this just a close friendship being misunderstood and blown out of proportion? Or does something about this dynamic genuinely feel off to you?